Breaking tonight, 5 days to the final debate, and Donald Trump trading fire with his accusers after two more women come forward with bombshell allegations. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Kristen Anderson and Summer Zervos are the latest to join a growing chorus of women who have gone public after Donald Trump denied ever making unwanted advances on women. Each of the two told her story today, with Anderson talking to the Washington Post about an experience she claimed she had with Mr. Trump at a popular nightclub in the early 90s.
The person on my right, who unbeknownst to me at that time was Donald Trump, put their hand up my skirt. He did touch my vagina through my underwear. Absolutely. And as I pushed the hand away and I got up and I turned around and I see these eyebrows, very distinct eyebrows of Donald Trump. And I got up and I moved and I continued to talk with my friends. And they said, "Oh, that's Donald Trump." I was like, "Ew, he's gross. He just put his hand up my skirt. That's not okay." And we all sort of brushed it off and moved on.
The story from Summer Zervos, which came out today, is more recent. It involved an alleged 2007 meetup with Mr. Trump. She described it at length during a press conference alongside attorney Gloria Allred earlier today. Here is some of what she said.
I met Mr. Trump when I was a candidate on The Apprentice in season 5. I had the utmost admiration for Mr. Trump, and even after I was fired, I continued to see him as a possible mentor and potential employer. In 2007, I was going to be in New York for a social obligation. I contacted Mr. Trump's office to see if he was available for lunch. I was informed that he could not have lunch, but that he would like to meet me with him in his office. When I arrived, he kissed me on the lips. I was surprised, but felt that perhaps it was just his form of greeting. We sat and spoke. He was extremely complimentary. He said he would love to have me work for him. Mr. Trump said he would be coming to Los Angeles soon, and he would contact me. He then called again days later to let me know that he was coming to Los Angeles. He again called me after he had just landed in Los Angeles. He asked me to meet him that evening at the Beverly Hills Hotel and asked me where I would like to have dinner. When I arrived, his security guard greeted me at the hotel. He walked with me to greet Mr. Trump. I assumed we were going to a restaurant in the hotel. Instead, I was taken to a bungalow. The security guard opened the door, and I went in. I was standing in the entryway. To my left was a bedroom, and I saw Mr. Trump's clothes on the bed. I did not see him, but he greeted me with hello in a sing-song voice. It sounded like, "Hello." I waited for about 15 minutes until Mr. Trump emerged. He had his suit on. I stood up, and he came to me and started kissing me open-mouthed as he was pulling me towards him. I walked away and I sat down in a chair. He was on a love seat across from me, and I made an attempt at conversation. He then asked me to sit next to him. I complied. He then grabbed my shoulder and began kissing me again very aggressively and placed his hand on my breast. I pulled back and walked to another part of the room. He then walked up, grabbed my hand, and walked me into the bedroom. I walked out. He then turned me around and said, "Let's lay down and watch some telly-telly." He put me in an embrace, and I tried to push him away. I pushed his chest to put space between us, and I said, "Come on, man, get real." He repeated my words back to me, "Get real," as he began thrusting his genitals. He tried to kiss me again, with my hand still on his chest, and I said, "Dude, you're tripping right now," attempting to make it clear I was not interested. He said, What do you want?" And I said, "I came to have dinner." He said, "Okay, we'll have dinner." He paced around the room. He acted like he was a bit angry. Dinner was delivered to the bungalow. When dinner arrived, he asked me to wait in a small room. I felt that he did not want the waiter to see me. After the table was set, he beckoned me to come out. We shared a club sandwich. The conversation then focused on the fact that I had a mortgage on my home, which I told him was in good standing. He then abruptly said he was tired and that he needed to go to bed and ended the conversation.
Now, this makes 8 women now who claim that Donald Trump harassed them. 7 of them coming forward since Trump defended his behavior at the presidential debate just 5 days ago, claiming he never has groped women. Now, for the second day in a row, the presidential candidate is offering an emphatic denial of the charges.
As you have seen, right now I am being viciously attacked with lies and smears. It's a phony deal. I have no idea who these women are. These are lies being pushed by the media and the Clinton campaign to try and keep their grip on our country. They are all false. They're totally invented, fiction.
Joining me now, David Wohl, attorney and Donald Trump supporter, and Julie Roginski, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor. Good to see you both.
Good to see you, Megan.
Hi, Megan.
So, David, you and I are both lawyers. You still practice law. I don't.
But you still know your stuff, Megan.
The problem is, we don't know whether this is true. And Donald Trump is being accused and tried in the court of public opinion. And we can't really we can't know what the truth is. There's not going to be a judge or a jury to resolve this before November 8th. But if what these women say is true, then we're not just dealing with a flawed presidential candidate, we're dealing with a sexual predator. So how are the American people to make sense of that in the next 3.5 weeks?
Well, I would never stipulate that what they're saying is true, Megan. Miss Anderson, for example, this happened, she says, 24 years ago. She said it may have been at the China Club. She's not sure exactly if it was there or somewhere else. This is the full interview. She says she doesn't remember who she was with. There were no witnesses. Something that traumatic, what she describes, Megan, as a felony digital penetration. You would remember.
She didn't say penetration.
Exactly. Well, she said, okay, touching. It's close enough. I mean, it's a sexual battery. It's a felony. And she would remember who she's with. She would remember which club she's at.
You don't know
Megan,
that.
And the second, Miss Zervos, by the way, she was reading directly from a script. It looked like she was reading a book. Hard to imagine there's a lot of credibility when she reads directly from a script.
David,
because, Megan, why don't you just speak from the... Why can't she just tell the story like she would on a witness stand?
Right. Because she was nervous and she wanted to get it right. The stakes are very high.
Couple that with the Wikileaks release today of communications between the Democrat National Committee, Megan, several operatives. That's fine. Okay, it's just hard to imagine much credibility, Megan. I've represented people for 27 years who have been charged falsely with allegations like this. You would be stunned at the frequency with which people are charged with embellishments, with completely false allegations, with half-truths. Cases are dismissed. Cases are never filed. It's shocking.
That is true. Julie, what he just said is true. I mean, women do make false claims. and we've seen that over and over again. We look at the Duke rape case, right? And look at the thing, what happened on UVA. I mean, and they can go a lot further than these women have gone in the claims. But Donald Trump was the one who first told us he does this to women. Grab them by, right? He's the one who said it. And just kiss them without even asking. And now one by one, these women have come forward from decades ago. I mean, every decade is covered of his adulthood, saying, me too, me too, me too, in great detail. And if this is an orchestrated smear, it's one hell of an orchestrated smear.
Well, yes, and let's put aside the fact that this may or may not be true, and Donald Trump deserves the presumption of innocence. What was most startling to me is not that these women are coming out now, because let us even assume that this is some orchestrated smear, which is hard to believe, but let's stipulate that it is. What was interesting to me is Donald Trump's reaction today to these allegations. Essentially, he was saying some of these women are not hot enough.
Can we have that sound? Let's play it for the audience so they know what we're talking about.
Take a look. You take a look. Look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. When you looked at that horrible woman last night, you said, I don't think so. I don't think so. I was sitting with him on an airplane, and he went after me on the plane. Yeah, I'm going to go after her. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you.
Go ahead, Julie.
As I said, let's put aside these allegations and let's just take him at his word. Do you have to be a supermodel to be sexually harassed or assaulted? Is that where we are, that Donald Trump is basically saying that unless you're Claudia Schiffer or somebody of that level, that women would never get assaulted by anybody because they're simply not hot enough to be assaulted? I mean, you know, that's where I think women have trouble relating to anything that he's saying. Because again, even if you give him the presumption of innocence, his words are so damning, they're so offensive, they're so viscerally insulting, that there's not much else to say about these allegations other than he dug his own hole deeper and deeper today by making the comments that he made.
Why is he talking about the looks of the women involved, David?
Well, when you hit Mr. Trump with a lie, with a slanderous, libelous allegation like this woman did, and that's his position, then he's going to hit back twice as hard, Megan, and he doesn't hold back.
By calling you ugly? That's the way he's going to handle it?
You know what? Compare what she said about what he did to what he said to her. There's no real comparison. Yes, it was kind of a teenage remark. I'd say I wouldn't counsel him to talk like that, but that's the way he is. He will hit you back twice as hard when you hit him with a non-truth, with an untruthful allegation, which that's his position. And so,
let me just ask you, David, before we go. Does it give you any pause? I mean, because as I said at the top, we don't know which is true. One of these two things is true. Either he has been very unfairly accused, or he is a predator. Does it concern you at all that option 2 is still in play?
No, because I've met him. I've know this man. I've talked to him. I've seen him interact with my children. He's a wonderful, good man, Megan. I wouldn't know the strain of.
But
everybody could have skeletons in the closet, Megan. I'm not buying it.
Generally, the sexual predators don't do it to their guy friends.
And the character of someone who does this is not Donald Trump's character. That's all there is to it.
May I say something about this? I grew up in the 1980s with Dr. Cliff Huxtable, the beloved dad of all of America, and look where Bill Cosby is today with his allegations. So you knowing somebody and meeting them man to man is not exactly experience, is what you know. Secondly, let me just make another point. The other point I want to make is, listen, insulting a woman's looks, we're not 12 years old. I've been insulted, Megan, I'm sure you've been insulted. Insulting our looks is not something that's going to make us curl up in a ball and make us cry. If that's where he's coming back and hitting twice as hard, that's a damn bad defense, I have to say. I mean, what is that other than a schoolyard taunt that doesn't work on adult women? That's ridiculous.
Listen, having said all that, you have to keep in mind that he has no time to defend himself. He's out there trying to run a presidential campaign and has been placed in an impossible situation. Who placed him there? Was it him and his own behavior?
Megan,
or somebody
the good
else?
News is next.
That is for
the good news is on Wednesday, Megan. On Wednesday, Chris Wallace is going to be a legitimate debate moderator. I can't wait.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you, Megan.
A couple of days ago, in a fiery column on FoxNews.com, a young woman by the name of Ying Ma defended Donald Trump, declaring herself an unabashed fan of the Republican nominee. She wrote, quote, "Strangers and friends alike have wondered how a highly educated Chinese-American woman could possibly support a man widely condemned as racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, and Islamophobic. It's not that complicated, really. I like the candidate and what he stands for, and I reject the caricature propagated by the mainstream media and his opponents." With me now, Ying Ma, who is also deputy director of the Committee for American Sovereignty, a pro-Trump super PAC. Ying, good to see you. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's just start.
Megan, great to be with you as well.
Let's start there, right? Because I think a lot of women out there are saying, how could she be behind? How could any woman support him at this point when you see the number of women coming forward and accusing him? And we'll just start there and ask you that.
Sure. Well, Megan, I think the allegations of sexual assault are very serious. They're very disturbing at this point. I know as much as you know, which is what we hear and see in the press. And Mr. Trump obviously has denied all charges categorically. So we simply don't know exactly what went on. Obviously, I don't deny that they are very disturbing allegations, but I support Donald Trump. And when I wrote that column, I listed all the reasons why I support him. They're very serious issues that this country faces. We've got a lot of challenges, and I believe he's the man who would be
Explain
the right
that,
person.
yeah, because you wrote this sort of before the sexual assault allegations were coming out.
Indeed,
but there was still a lot of controversial stuff that he had done and said prior to that, and you still said this is not a deal breaker for me. Explain why.
Sure. Well, let me start with all the controversial stuff that he said and done. I think that from my point of view, just because somebody says controversial things doesn't disqualify him. The left has sort of suffocated our public debate and our private discourse for a very long time, that you're allowed to say certain things about women, about minorities, about religious groups, and nobody can even have an honest conversation anymore. And I think one of the reasons why Donald Trump has resonated with so many Americans is that he is considered to be an authentic person who is willing to tell the truth. A lot of times he says things that are very different from what other politicians would say, but the American people understand that he's speaking from the heart, and that's actually one of the reasons why he has tremendous appeal. And so one of the main reasons why I like him is that he is politically incorrect. Just because I'm a woman, just because I'm a minority, just because I'm an immigrant does not mean that I need the left to coddle me the way that it preaches.
Ying, let me ask you, if 10 more women came forward between now and November 8th, would it change your view of him?
I think these are very serious allegations, Megan. I don't deny that at all. But let me also say that even though the media has covered this so much wall-to-wall coverage in the last few days, I don't remember CNN, NBC, ABC ever interviewing any of the victims who alleged that Bill Clinton assaulted them. I don't remember ABC interviewing Juanita
Some
Broderick.
Have said today, I will say this, some have said that they asked and were refused. Right here on this program, we interviewed Kathleen Willey, and we have that. But Ying, what's the name of your book? Because it sounded very interesting.
The name of my book is Chinese Girl in the Ghetto, and it talks about my family's journey from communist China to inner city Oakland, California.
And pulling yourself up and relying on yourself to improve your life, which is a message that resonates with everybody. I got to run because we have a tight show tonight, but it's great to see you.
Thank you so much.
So we also have a new bombshell from Wikileaks tonight involving the Clinton campaign and its connection to some very ugly questions about President Obama, his faith, and his drug use. Have you heard about this? Plus new revelations and an alleged leak of debate questions. We'll dig into exactly how a copy of the question asked by Roland Martin ended up in the hands of Donna Brazile, who was advising the Democrats. Plus, Donald Trump today called out a Mexican billionaire, accusing him of orchestrating the media attacks against him. Chris Direwalt and Howie Kurtz are next on that. Don't go away.
Reporters at the New York Times, they're not journalists. They're corporate lobbyists for Carlos Slim and for Hillary Clinton. We are not going to let it happen where they decide the outcome of our elections.
Breaking tonight, new reaction as Donald Trump takes criticism of the media to be the victim of a conspiracy involving a Mexican billionaire, Hillary Clinton, and the New York Times. Watch.
No paper is more corrupt than the failing New York Times. The largest shareholder in the Times is Carlos Slim. Now, Carlos Slim, as you know, comes from Mexico. He's given many millions of dollars to the Clintons and their initiatives. Reporters at the New York Times, they're not journalists. They're corporate lobbyists for Carlos Slim and for Hillary Clinton. We are not going to let it happen where they decide the outcome of our elections.
And it's not just the New York Times feeling the heat. Crowds at some Trump rallies have begun yelling at reporters, even more so than normal. In fact, police in one city had to monitor the press motorcade after hearing chants like this.
They are so dishonest.
They're chanting CNN sucks. Here now, Chris Direwalt, co-host of Perino and Steyerwalt, and Howie Kurtz, host of Media Buzz. I mean, listen, they've been coming after the media from months now. It does seem to be reaching a fever pitch, though, Chris.
And now there's a Mexican, too, so you've got it all. I don't know why you would need, if there was a conspiracy. Let's say there was a conspiracy that, as Trump says, bankers and a global elite and this Mexican billionaire and Clinton part of this cabal to defeat Donald Trump. Why is he helping them so much? Why does he help them every day? Why does he go on the campaign trail and say that the women that accuse him of sexual assault were too ugly? Why does he go on the campaign trail and make in an aside when he's defending himself on sexual assault? Does he stop and say, by the way, I don't think that Hillary Clinton's attractive? It doesn't take a conspiracy to defeat somebody who is defeating himself every day. I do not understand it.
By the way, do we have that soundbite on Hillary? We had that cue a bit ago. Do you guys have that? Okay, we're going to get it. Howie, it's to the point now where there are swastika signs showing up about the press at the Trump rallies. The Committee to Protect Journalists has condemned Trump now, saying, like, this is too far. There is I get it. Yeah, pay is important.
Look, it is fair for Donald Trump to question whether this is media overkill. There is virtually no other campaign story right now. But there is zero evidence that Carlos Slim, because he owns a bunch of stock, has anything to do with the editorial decisions of the New York Times. There's zero evidence of coordination among the different news organizations interviewing these women on the record. Excuse me?
That doesn't seem to matter anymore, right? I mean, this is the year you can say anything.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to provide a little bit of reality check here. And the fact is, these women, we don't know whether they're telling the truth or not, as you said earlier, but they're going on the record, they're risking their reputations. And for Trump to be denouncing this media as part of a smear campaign, what it does is it really pleases his base, but I don't see where it's adding any more votes to his column.
Here's the soundbite that we were referencing earlier. Listen.
I'm standing at my podium, and she walks in front of me, right? She walks in front of me, you know. And when she walked in front of me, believe me, I wasn't impressed.
Nah, bro.
I mean, it's constantly,
Don't do it.
constantly.
Don't
Remember,
do it.
He called Carly Fiorina
That
unattractive,
face.
and then he tried to fix it by saying she's beautiful, which is meanwhile it's like, just stop commenting on our looks. Just stop, like.
Well, and the other thing is, it's not inexplicable how, whether you think the allegations are true, whether you think they're false, whether you think the media overdoes it, if you think the press is rigged, quit helping the rigged press. If that's really what you believe, that it's a conspiracy against you, stop helping.
CNN is going wall to wall on the Trump allegations. I mean, they are going wall to wall. I mean, every single person is getting half an hour, uninterrupted, and it's a little discomforting. These women deserve to have their say, and this is a real story. I mean, this is a real story. But fact-checking it in 12 hours' time has posed some challenges. Let's move on. Howie, I defended Donna Brazile. I defended CNN, saying I cannot imagine CNN ever sharing a debate question, a town hall question, with the candidate prior to a debate. It certainly looks like that did happen now, though, because now we've seen an email that shows the exact question Roland Martin asked Hillary Clinton at this town hall. The exact one was shared with Donna Brazile before he asked it.
Donna Brazile told me she was flabbergasted by this allegation, but she couldn't explain why in her own email to the Clinton campaign she said, I sometimes get the questions in advance. CNN didn't give her the questions, it turns out. Roland Martin, whose TV One was partnering in this town hall, obviously did give this to CNN. Even CNN isn't defending this anymore. CNN anchor Jake Tapper says that this is horrifying and unethical, and it looks bad for everyone. And it really underscores the risk of having, as one of your premier contributors, somebody who was also the number 2 official in the Democratic Party. And so to do that and give the questions in advance, I think clearly is a stain on CNN, which, would never want this to happen.
Well, here's Jake Tapper to your point. Listen.
My understanding is there has been that the email to Donna came from either Roland Martin or someone around Roland Martin. Journalistically, it's horrifying to have us partner with that person, and then they do something completely unethical and share it with Donna Brazile, who then shares it with the Clinton campaign. I condemn it in no uncertain terms. It's awful.
Chris, I'll give you the last word.
I have no idea how Chris Wallace is going to vote in the election. I have no idea. I've known you for years, Counselor. I have no idea how you're going to vote in the election. I don't know how Bret Baier votes in the election. That's why it's good to have journalists and not partisans running debates and acting as the interlocutors when you have these events.
And think about that. Even on the Republican side this year, the RNC tried to force news organizations to allow Republican pundits to join the debate teams. Fox News said no. And we were one of the only news organizations to refuse. It's fraught with peril. The situation's fraught with peril, as this proves. Good to see you both.
You bet.
Great to see you.
So what happens if Donald Trump shows up to the final debate with the kind of fire we have seen on the trail in the past 2 days? Mark McKinnon and Larry Sabato have some thoughts on that next. Plus, Wikileaks has now released hacked emails about the Clinton campaign and its connection to some very ugly questions about Barack Obama, his faith, and his drug use. Next.
Well, beats me, because there's not one shred of truth in what you've just read.
Campaign has now had to deal with more than a week of embarrassing daily revelations thanks to WikiLeaks. Today saw several more, including a 2008 email about possible ways to attack then-Senator Barack Obama, including Senator Obama's past drug use and his late father's Muslim faith. Here's the exact wording of some of the topics, including, quote, Obama's, note the emphasis on pronunciation, father was a Muslim, and Obama grew up among Muslims in the world's most populous Islamic country. Here they're considering whether he'd be hit on this. And, quote, Obama described his former use of cocaine as using, quote, a little blow. After today learning that the Clinton camp was floating these ideas 8 years ago, we went back to see what happened. What happened when Mrs. Clinton was asked about those nasty rumors about President Obama's or then Senator Obama's faith? Here she is on Meet the Press.
We've already seen Clinton surrogates trying to implant the false idea that Mr. Obama might be a Muslim and perhaps a drug dealer to boot. What is this all about?
Well, beats me, because there's not one shred of truth in what you've just read, and I regret that, because obviously a lot of people have been given information or an impression that is absolutely false.
Oh, wherever could they have gotten that impression from? Joining me now, Carl Higbie, a former Navy SEAL and spokesman for the Great America PAC, and Richard Fowler, a Fox News contributor and senior fellow with the New Leaders Council. Wow. I can't
Surprise.
Where, Carl? Where could they have gotten the impression that he might be Muslim or might be a drug dealer? Yeah. Oh, wait. Paul Begala's already testing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an increased narrative that we're seeing coming out of the Hillary Clinton campaign. You've seen needy Latinos, you've seen the Muslim faith, the Catholic faith. They're constantly attacking Donald Trump for being a racist bigot. But now you see the inner workings of the Clinton campaign through these releases, and surprise, surprise, not only is Hillary Clinton going back on herself and flip-flopping once again, but we're seeing the same stuff that she's criticizing others for.
You know, Richard, some people say about Donald Trump, his biggest flaw is he shows you all of his flaws. He's open about his flaws. I mean, that may be true. And she may be just as flawed as he is, but she hides it better. These Wikileaks are showing us a different kind of character in the people she surrounds herself with. They're talking about testing how it's going to play that his dad was Muslim and he was raised in a Muslim country. And then she's out there like, oh, it's horrible.
Well, here's the thing, Megan. Politics is a blood sport. So in any tough primary, you're going to have you test messaging just in case you need to go there. It's a break in case of emergency. Sometimes candidates break it. Sometimes they don't. When they don't break it, we don't talk about it. When they do break it, we talk about it. Case in point, in 2012, Newt Gingrich ran all these crazy ads against Mitt Romney. A lot of the stuff was true. That came from an Oppo research file where they tested the messaging and they tested it out. And they actually broke it. And they used it. So this happens all the time in campaigns. Does it speak to Hillary Clinton's integrity?
But the soundbite we just played puts the lie to her behavior. And what we've seen in these WikiLeaks mails is she admits she has to say one thing publicly and another thing privately. Not that she has to, but that she chooses to. And what she has said privately is to dismiss Democratic supporters as needy Latinos, and her campaign team has some vicious attacks on Catholics, and we all know that they considered going after Bernie Sanders for his faith at the DNC level during this primary, and now she's thinking about going after Barack Obama for his faith in 2008. I mean, Carl, you could pardon the American public for not giving her the high ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is indicative. She is criticizing Trump for far less. And now you see this, and it's at what point does the American public say, Hillary Clinton is a liar, and I don't want to vote for her? This is what people are voting against, is they're tired of people flip-flopping, doing one thing behind closed doors, one thing publicly, and then accomplishing nothing once they get elected. This is why people are voting for Donald Trump.
I will say this is what Paul Begala says, who was on the email. He's now a CNN contributor, but he I think is affiliated with the super PAC that helps Democrats. He writes, every campaign and every PAC tests potential negatives against the candidate they support. That's all this was. He says this is all about what was going to happen in the general election. In other words, they're trying to put it on, whoever ran against Obama was going to have to hit Obama, so we as Democrats need to figure out what the vulnerabilities were. Richard?
That's absolutely it, Megan. I want to add one other point, and I think that let's be very clear. What Hillary Clinton is doing was what every campaign does. What Donald Trump is doing is what I would call unconventional and straight out weird. He's attacked women, he's attacked African Americans, he's attacked Latinos openly, publicly, unapologetically, not for political poll testing, just because he thinks it's a good ideal. And that's why these two things are different. Hillary Clinton did it for political, and I'm not saying she's right. I'm saying she did it for political motives.
Latinos, the needy ones, and Muslims.
Yeah, but that's not Hillary Clinton.
But then she's done it privately. It's like, that's it. Yeah, but it's all the people she surrounds herself. This is her campaign chairman on these emails.
It's what she's campaigning on Donald Trump being so bad about, but she's doing it herself.
Yeah, because he's doing it openly in public without veil.
Well, now it's hers is public.
Gotta go. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Megan.
Well, with 5 days to the first ever Fox News moderated presidential debate, there are growing suggestions it could be the most dramatic showdown of the entire year. I mean, what is going to happen at this thing? Mark McKinnon has seen a lot of these. So has Larry Sabato. They're here next, live.
I mean, he doubled down and he stayed on offense the whole night. He wanted to show he's still in the ring and he can still swing.
No, I think he survived. I think he survived. But he can't win the presidency with 40 or 41% of the country. But the people who love him will have loved this debate performance.
Right.
Tonight, a sneak peek of what to expect from Wednesday's first ever Fox News presidential debate. If last Sunday's debate is any indication, our own Chris Wallace will be moderating two candidates on fire, with Clinton and Trump ready to give it everything they've got at their final meeting before Election Day. Wow. We checked in with our friends at Showtime's The Circus for an inside look at what the debates look like after the candidates have left the stage. And here's what The Circus found in the spin room last week. Watch.
Katrina, your take on tonight?
It was different from last time because that first debate he really was just getting his feet wet, and he made a promise to go after her record this time, and he did.
He came to attack her. He tried to knock her off his game, and he failed.
This guy was locked down tonight. This is the Trump, the quintessential Trump. He was excellent, phenomenal.
Knockout. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
He came out strong. Hard and was fair and strong and resolute. He was good on substance. He was great on everything. He was probably too nice the first time. And what loves him.
We're probably in a funk in the last 48 hours.
If the tape hadn't come bad, good moments, much more preparation, I think he probably would have left here with some momentum. But
and he can still swing.
No, I think he survived. I think he survived. But he can't win the presidency with 40 or 41% of the country. But the people who love him will have loved this debate performance.
Right.
But did it gain him a single vote?
Joining me now, the creator and host of that show, The Circus, Mark McKinnon. He served as chief media advisor to President George W. Bush, and the director of UVA's Center for Politics, Dr. Larry Sabato. Great to see you both. So, Mark, it's always so riveting to see those clips. I mean, do you think the tape just wiped out everything we saw at that debate?
Oh, it obscured everything, and unfortunately for Trump, it obscured a lot of bad news that was breaking on Hillary Clinton at the same time. All those emails, the paid speech, this was everything.
Yeah, essentially, real events make a difference in these polls. Now, most people have made up their mind, but basically you either enthuse your party base or you depress it. I think it's obvious who's depressed.
I would have told him a different strategy in the last debate, but now that he's gone this direction, it's the clear strategy that he's employing right now is to burn the boats. It's like the Vikings. When they go and invade, they burn the boats so you can't retreat. His whole approach now is we're doubling down, tripling down, all in, and to just kind of blow up everything in sight and hope that he survives somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So I think.
Do you feel like he just has no other option?
Listen, I think in the next debate, their plan is that if she goes low, we go lower.
Right.
Now she's just got to paddle very carefully and not.
She's trying to stay above it all. That's
here's what I would counsel both of them. It's the third debate. It's the last chance. This has been so negative. And I remember like Ohio in 2004 was so negative. This is an opportunity for either one of them to go real high, to really just brush this all away and really put forward a positive, powerful Reagan-like message.
You're so cute. You thought 2004 was negative. Isn't he adorable? He's adorbs. Larry, the polling shows that whoever Trump appealed to at that last debate, it was not that core group of women to whom he needs to appeal if he wants to improve his numbers before November 8th. The women are just not with him.
Women aren't with him. A surprising number of suburban Republicans are holding out. millennials, he's dead last, really, when you look at Clinton and Gary Johnson. He's got a lot of work to do just about everywhere, and every time I look at the polling averages, Clinton is moving up a fraction of a point, and it adds up over time with 24 days to go.
But what do you make of all the, I mean, the Trump crowd sizes are amazing. They are huge, and she's got like 4 people at hers.
Well, if you're asking me about crowd sizes,
yeah,
I could give you plenty of anecdotes of losing candidates who told me they were going to win because despite the polls, they had enormous crowds. That includes everybody from George McGovern in 1972 to Mitt Romney in 2012. Crowd peeped here. We're talking about an electorate of 135 million, Megan. 135 million. Suddenly, those crowds don't seem very large, do they?
I remember seeing it with Mitt Romney, too. It was just amazing.
What she lacks in enthusiasm. She's got a big ground game, investing a lot in the state turnout operations. And in the last FEC report, Donald Trump had spent, I think, $400,000 in statewide turnout operations and $1.8 million on hats. So we're going to test the hat strategy here.
Wow. Great to see you, Mark. You too, Larry. Thank you. Up
Thanks,
next, if you'll permit me, a personal moment. Well, my Nana, Antoinette Frances Halsworth, was a feisty little girl who came into this world on October 1st, 1950. Nana's journey here ended, and a new one began. Nan grew up poor, the daughter of loving, hardworking parents. Her dad shoveled coal to support his family. She remembered the day they first got electricity. Nan sitting in the living room, a small child, flipping the light switch on and off, marveling at it. Nana went on to marry a fireman, my pop-up, an Italian immigrant, who thought the sun rose and set around her. They had 2 kids, my mom and my uncle. And then there were 2 Spitfire women in the family. Nana lived through 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the Lindbergh kidnapping, and the assassination of a U.S. president. She came into this world when women couldn't vote, and went out as the country considers electing its first female president. She was from a different time. One time, Pop-Up hurt himself fighting a fire. They could have sued, but they didn't, and they wouldn't. Who would do that? Nana wondered many times. Things were different then. The greatest generation. Nan helped raise us, and while she gave us free rein, she was always watching. Even these days at 9 p.m., she would turn on the Kelly File, and from her lazy boy recliner, she would still be watching. I can't understand a damn word you're saying, she would tell me, but I like to make sure you're okay. There's something deeply special about the love between a grandparent and their grandchildren. It's deeply unconditional. In Nana's eyes, we could do no wrong, nor could our children, her treasures, as she called them. We knew at her age that there wasn't much time left, but that doesn't stop the pain or the loss we feel on saying goodbye. To our viewers who have always been so kind, with well wishes for Nana, I wanted to say a heartfelt thank you, and to leave you with this bit of the poem, which for 31 years, since the day Pop-Up died, Nana kept on her bedside table. Should you go first and I remain, one thing I'd have you do. Walk slowly down that long, lone path, for soon I'll follow you. I'll want to know each step you take, that I may walk the same. For someday, down that lonely road, you'll hear me call your name.